What if I told you that just 5 strategic questions could reveal a guy and his whole character? More than a month of talking to him. After studying hundreds of marriages and helping thousands in coaching, I've identified specific conversations and patterns that expose very quickly traits early in a relationship. But here's what most women completely miss in getting to know a potential spouse, the halal way. It's not about his religiosity checklist, family background, how he talks to you, how he presents himself. It's not. It's about uncovering how he responds to specific situations that predict his long-term character as a husband. And I'm going to throw in there some emotional intelligence, some growth mindset, because I know y'all are wondering, how do you determine that stuff? It is so hard. And it is, unless you have the right questions. I'm going to give you a couple of them today. If you listen to this podcast, you're definitely going to get some that you're like, what? Why did I not think of that? Remember that disappointment you feel when you've just invested so much time and emotion into someone only to find out they're not marriage material? Well, these 5 questions are going to help you identify those, as well as red flags, saving your heart, time, and dignity. In the next few minutes, I'll share the exact wording of these questions and explain precisely how to use them and why they're going to work, and revealing how a man's character really is, his values, his readiness for marriage, and more. No more shocking surprises. You're going to have a better experience in spouse seeking starting today. Welcome to the Mindful Muslimah Speaks podcast, a safe space to learn and grow into the best version of yourself that you're always meant to be. I'm your host, Mindful Muslimah, a mom of 5, big sister to the community, and a licensed educator with 25 plus years and supporting tens of thousands of Muslim women worldwide. Now, I'm excited to share a ton of solutions to your problems on love, relationships, life balance, reconnecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, getting back on track, and more. So grab a cup of coffee and close out those tabs. These next 20 to 30 minutes are all about you. Let's get started. All right, so we're going to dive right into the 5 questions, but let me say this. When I work with women, I don't give generic questions. I am cringing, I am crying when people are downloading random basic questionnaires of 100 questions to ask somebody. That is so wrong. We get down to the nitty-gritty of exactly what you want and what you're looking for and trying to do. And I do it over a matter of sessions where by the end, you end with this master list that is crafted for you. That's my traditional way of doing this. So I don't have generic 5 questions. These are it. Axis, like this is not a hocus pocus kind of thing. So I just want to be really clear about that right off the bat. So these 5 are not generic make or break that you're going to just ask these. However, these are going to give you a really good idea really quick of that your questions that you're asking might not be that good. And I'm going to explain why. And these are a couple that you can use. You could totally put them in your pocket, and they are very powerful for figuring out emotional intelligence and growth mindset and a couple more. But they are not the entire package. I would not use these alone and just use it to determine, but these are going to give you, like I said, an idea of a really way higher caliber that you should be asking, and 2, definitely answers on those things. I would just say don't leave it there. Find out more after that. All right, that was my disclaimer, just going forward. All right, so let's talk about it. So when women are asking questions, first of all, you have to come up with your non-negotiables. Like I said, I take weeks going on these with women. I usually do them in sessions where we hash it out, and it gets crazy. They don't realize that what they wanted is actually not that. So for example, I had this sister and I said, what's one of your non-negotiables? And she's like, I want a guy that wants to be a father. And then I said, well, what does that mean? She's like, he wants to be a dad. I go, so just wants to have kids? No. I want him to actually be a dad. And I was like, what does that mean? She's like, well, and I said, wait, before I say that, what question are you asking guys to figure out if he wants to be a dad? And then she was like, well, I ask him, how many kids do you want? And then if he says 10, I know he's going to just think I'm a baby maker and totally take advantage of me. And I was like, wait a minute, that took a turn. Where did that come from? Baby maker? I'm already sensing there's some type of experience that we're having of some sort. And I was like, okay, so how do you figure out if he doesn't think you're a baby maker? Like if he says 2 kids? And she's like, well, that sounds more normal and reasonable. And I was like, okay, but wait a minute. How is this telling you the quality of his fatherhood? Numbers of kids. Is this really what you're asking? She's like, well, I'll ask some follow-up questions. I'm like, okay, do tell. What are you asking? Then she's like, well, I might ask, things about the kids. How are you going to spend time with the kids? And I was like, sis, can we pause this right now? What do you really want to know? What are you looking for? What are you trying to uncover? She's like, well, I ask these questions as a trick because I figure out guys are going to lie to me. So if they're going to lie to me, they're not going to answer me straight out if they're a good father. So I'm just going to have to beat around to it and find out what are their real ideas of fatherhood. I was like, can I ask you a question? I don't feel this is about fatherhood. What is this really about? And I said, are you worried about him making you do everything and not being present? And then she's like, yeah, that's what it is. And I said, okay, but how is that question, how many kids you want to have, going to do that for you? Then she's like, do you understand? She knew that question wasn't the question, but she was trying to be strategic, which I appreciate because she's very, very smart. She's a great woman. But she was doing that, but I sensed it came from trauma. So let me say something to you ladies who have bad experiences with fathers and the way they treat your mothers and all other types of things that we have seen in our families. They show up in your spouse-seeking search. So this is important. First thing I want to say is your non-negotiables can't just be like, I want him to pray, be a non-smoker. Like, those are great. Those are beginning tactics. But then we start to go deeper. And usually in sessions, I will make women break down what's the real reason. What does that really look like? I want him to be religious. What does religious mean? What does that mean? He just prays 5 times a day and eats zabiha and that's it? No, it means more. What does it mean? You have to ask. Let me tell you why. If you don't ask, and then later on you find out he's not what you wanted, guess whose fault it is? I'm just going to be fair. I know I sound tough on these podcasts more than usual. You guys are not used to this side of me. This is my coaching side. This is the side that gets results. We got to push through what's blocking you. And at the end of the day, we need to stop pretending this stuff isn't happening. What's the real thing you're trying to get at? What are you really afraid of? I'm afraid I'm going to end up like my mom and I'm going to be stuck doing everything while my dad doesn't help at all, goes home, plays on his phone, goes in his office, never home, out with the guys, and I have a miserable life and I'm stuck. So that trauma is going to make you ask the wrong questions. And a lot of you are doing that because I talk to a lot of you in coaching calls. All right, that being said. So I say non-negotiables, but the non-negotiables here are really supposed to focus more towards personal traits, your life together in the future, being honest and specific. Okay, so let me give you an idea of a couple questions. I'm going to pull some up here that we do with women. I'm not going to give you all. All right, so as you're looking for guys, you want questions that are going to be open-ended, not yes or no, and that are going to force him to talk about a story, a time, a scenario that is going to give you a window into his life and how he handled that moment. And you're not going to have to worry about if he's lying or not. Let me tell you why. Because we've crafted these, and these are just a couple of our master ones. We've crafted these in such a way where you can't make these stories up on the fly. And if you were trying to, like you were. Do you know what I'm saying? So if the questions are good enough, they do that in themselves. Let me give you one right here. Let's talk about emotional intelligence, right? Can he regulate his emotions or does he just shut down and overreact? Isn't that something a woman needs to know? Because obviously you're going to have to deal with him. How does he validate feelings or dismiss them? AKA your feelings, right? How does he react to stress? Because a lot of men get stressed over work, bring it home, and detach from their wife and ignore her. We don't want that to happen. So here's some things we might be wondering. Okay, so let's look at a couple questions. How do you react to stress? Okay, when you're under a lot of pressure, what helps you stay grounded? Can you describe a time when you handled a stressful situation well? Or you could say another time when you handled it unwell. If you're asking him to share a time when, he's going to open up with a story. Now, in that story, this is where you're going to get smart. It's not just the questions, guys. It's what you're looking for while he's talking. You're looking for emotional intelligence in his story. You're saying, how responsive is he to the other person? Like, let's say he starts telling a story, and then it's all about how the other person stressed him out, and it's not right, and they should have considered, and then you're like, wait a minute. Is that the way he's going to talk to me? Is that the way he sees their problem? Because I see their problem a little differently. And you're going to start to put yourself in the shoes of the other person on the other side that he's dealing with and say, wow, this is what it's like to be with him. So you didn't ask him something about you and him. Do you get how that works? You asked him about somebody else who made him upset. And therefore, it's going to let you see a window into how he's going to treat you when he's upset with you. Now, he's going to be more honest about somebody else because he knows you don't know them. And he's going to think, what do you care? But what you're doing is thinking, okay. That's how you deal with people like that. And that's how you see them if that's their problem. So that's a cute little window right there. Let's do another one. It's also really important that you don't ask him if he ever gets mad or angry. Like, these are just silly. We're all human, right? So let's assume he's a guy that gets upset. Let's assume, because he should be a guy that gets upset because he's a human, right? Okay. So the question would go like this. You want to know if he overreacts to stuff or he shuts down and doesn't whatever. So tell me about the last time you felt really frustrated or upset. What did you do in that moment? And how did you handle it afterwards? Because sometimes in the moment, people say the wrong things, they hurt people, and afterwards, because they're reflecting, because they have emotional intelligence, they change the way they are. They might have to come and they might have to say sorry, or they might have realized. So you're going to watch what he does with that question. Does he just have something, and how did he react to that person? So you're looking for how he handles that person. Do you get me? That I'm telling you, these are the types of ways you need to craft your questions. We just give these to you when I work with you, but I do also help you craft your own based on your own. But this is the stuff you need to do. So when you're listening to him about how he deals with the person and he's frustrated and upset with them, you're just like, did he even handle it right in the first place? And even if he handled it wrong, you're looking in the reflective part to go, is he the kind of person that says sorry? Is he the kind of person that realized it was him and not them? Or does he handle it appropriately? Because he goes through that scenario, it gives you so much rich information about his thought process with women or with others in general. All right, I'll give you a couple more. Growth mindset. I know you guys love this one. And you could do really basic questions, but let me give you a juicy one, okay? Tell me about a time when something didn't go as planned. Now, mind you, when you say these questions, don't say them like I say them. Do them way more casual. I'm just talking to you like the way I talk, but you could talk less weird, right? Works for our scenario, but we try to be like, oh, tell me about a time that you could be more casual, right? Tell me about a time when something didn't go as planned. Whether it was work, life, relationships, whatever, how did you respond and what did you learn from it? Now, the reason you want to know is because, again, it's not just the question. You're like, is this guy able to look at a situation and grow from it? And mind you, even if he did make it up, if you know how to read bodies, for example, we have a course called the Muslim Marriage Lab, and we teach women how to find compatible spouses by the process of you and him, you and the family, and then the actual, process of meher and pictures and apps and stuff. We go through all the details. It's a full-on course. And so in it, I have a book that I give for free. And inside the book is how to read body language. And it was written by this, I think it was the CIA, the FBI. If you're in America, you know what that is. And so, or what is that? Is that in Europe? Is that KGB? So anyway, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you learn how to read body language. So I teach you how to do that because I think that's a valuable skill, I'm sorry to say. So anyway, so you start to watch him and you're like, ooh, is he telling that story right? You know what I mean? And you could pick up on his awkwardness if he is lying. So we're not looking for liars. Enough with the trauma for a minute. Let's just get to how's he going to respond, learn from it. You could see right there how he's talking to people. Does he avoid tough conversations? I don't know. What's going on with that? So let's find out. Can you think of a time where you had to have a difficult conversation with somebody, and how did you approach it, and what was the outcome? So you're like, let's not pretend you don't have difficult conversations. Let's talk about one you just had with somebody else. Again, somebody else. I see most of you guys going into courting or whatever you want to call it, interviewing. There's no real term in Islam. And it's just a lot of if we were married, what would you do? What's your idea about it? Okay, those are good sometimes, but sometimes you got to hear him talking about somebody else, which is also why, side note, I see a lot of you not spending enough time engaging with him and his family, observing them and see how he deals with them on good days, on bad days. I mean, I know women that they get married really, really fast without asking major, major questions. And so these things are really, really important. I'm going to give you one last one. I really like typical day in your life because I feel like you wouldn't know. For example, if you asked me what's a typical day in your life, and I told you, you would know from sun up to sundown how I spent my day. I think it's nice and important to know because I think that says a lot about the way people live their life. Or maybe if it was the way you do it now, how would you do it together? Would you do it any differently? Anyway, so let's do one of those. Let's do one of those day in the life. What does a typical day in your life look like? How do you balance work, family, and personal time? Because most guys struggle. Women struggle, right? We all struggle. So just him exploring right there, it opens a door. And then in that door, as he says things, you can ask him for oh, tell me more about that. I want to hear about that. That's gets him to talk more. Or, oh, what about so when he hits you oh, then I come over from work and I usually go to the gym. Oh, tell me more about the gym. Do you love fitness? So it'll go into other things. Don't tangent too far. But the point is, it's going to give you a really good synopsis of what it's like to live with him and what he lives like now, because he might not be able to transition to your way right away. So it's just another thing to see if you have lifestyle alignment. So these are just a couple questions, guys, of many questions. And what I would say is stay away from those lists of generic questions online. Instead, breaking down what you're really looking for and what question would really reveal that. And mind you, it's not gonna be one question. We have a strategy where we have like a one in some. I can't go into it now. But anyway, so that is the big thing. And then also think about the fact that sometimes you have to look for certain things as they answer other questions. So for example, honesty, it's a non-negotiable. Well, you're gonna have to look for honesty over multiple conversations and multiple questions. It's not something that you're gonna get from one question. So don't think there's a secret honesty question, right? And then there's also other elements, which is like, if you yourself understand how to look for the answers. But that's what we specialize in. I just wanna open the door today to you to say, one, please get better questions. Number two, please make sure you're looking for things within the questions. And three, that you know how to do all that. And if you don't, that's what we do with women. Because if all that sounds overwhelming, it's not. It's actually super simple. We actually have like even a little blueprint. We give you everything about how to do it. And I talked to you about, there's so many things. There's so many things we could do together. But we're about to have an interview workshop, inshallah ta'ala. It depends on when you see this. Either it's on, you're getting on the wait list or you're getting in the registration. I am so excited to show this stuff. I'm going to actually model it. I'm going to actually, I think, have a mock guy there that I do it with. It's not going to be a guy, just FYI, because that would be weird. But I'm going to do it in a way that you guys are going to get to see like a full-on conversation. And inshallah ta'ala, you are going to know exactly how to handle it. And so you are no longer going to feel awkward, weird, not sure what to ask, not sure what to say, totally confident talking to guys about things like this, because you're going to see it done, get master advice and master questions. And so definitely make sure you get the link, you get on that. We're going to limit the seats because I want to make sure it's a quality experience. And inshallah ta'ala, I cannot wait to see you in there and in the next podcast. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.